Hi, I'm Usama. Today, I'll be presenting the ICWSM paper that I have worked on with my advisor, Dr. Srinivasan. It's called Style Matters Investigating Linguistic Style in Online Communities. Well, what do I mean by style? We can say that the language we use has two components. There's the shared vocabulary, the mutually understood set of symbols, phrases, and words that we use to interact with each other. There's a second component to language, and that's all the paralingual features. These can range from the straightforward, like avoiding taboo words, to the more subtle, like using complex language. And this is what we mean by style. While we can consciously learn vocabulary, it has been argued that style develops more through a subconscious process, and that means we can use it to get a deeper understanding of the human psyche. The issue here is that while there's a lot of work done on the linguistic style of individuals, we still don't know a lot about style at a community level. We know that individuals have their own idiolects, that's their own unique language, that's a reflection of their social realities. But when they engage with each other and form communities, a language of the community emerges. This language, while being a product of the language of the individual members, is distinct from that and forms a unique community identity of its own. An identity that accentuates both the similarities within the group and the differences across groups. Now, if communities have their own language, they must naturally have their own styles as well. If so, then the obvious question is, can we identify the stylistic features that makes a community distinct? And the logical follow-up question is, can we predict membership within a community based on these stylistic features alone? So far, I have been talking about communities quite broadly. Our work in particular deals with communities formed around shared interests on 4chan, Reddit, and Vote. We wanted to select communities that had parallels on all three social media platforms, so we opted for the politics, travel, and television forums. We collected data from these forums going as far back as 2012. But due to the sheer volume of the data, we had to sample 1% of 4chan and 10% of Reddit. This data is summarized here. Our data contains comments posted by individuals, but our focus is not the individual, it's the community. Now, to get a representation of the language of a community, we consider a month and aggregate all the comments from that one month into a single pseudo document. This is now the language of that community for that one particular month. We made use of prior literature to come up with an exhaustive list of stylistic features. These can roughly be divided into 4 parts. We can measure the complexity of language using readability features like the automated readability index, and we have features like the Apex legomena, which measures the diversity of language. In total, we ended up with 262 features. Now, our main question is, how representative are these features for a community? But what does it mean for a feature to be representative? Let's consider the example of the 4chan politics community. We can say that for /Paul, swear words are more representative than, let's say, second person pronouns, since the occurrence of swear words has a lower variance. For each community, we can rank its features from the most representative to the least representative, resulting in these vectors that have the feature representation of a community. If we want to compare these ordered vectors, we can just calculate the correlation between them. Now, let's say if two vectors theoretically have the maximum correlation of 1, that would mean that they have the same representation. However, when we calculated these correlations, we found that they were at best moderate, and the 3 highest correlations all involved the 4chan politics community. The moderate correlation would indicate that these communities do share a representative style, but only to a slight extent. Next, we just considered the top 10 most representative features and compared them amongst the communities. From this, we can see that our politics has the most unique representation, since it only shares 3 of its representative features with the other 8 communities. And on the other hand, Vote Television has the least unique representation, since only 3 of its features are unique. Based on these results, we can confidently say that communities do indeed have a representative style, but is that style also distinct? We can say that a feature is more distinctive for a community if its inclusion in the featured space increases the distance of the community from all the other communities, and its exclusion brings the community closer to the other communities. Just as before, we can rank the features by their distinctiveness. If we consider the top 10 features, we can see that vote travel and our television have the most distinct representation, while /Paul has the least distinct. However, all communities have a unique representation. And this answers our second question, that communities indeed have a distinct style. As an example, if we consider the television communities on Reddit and 4chan, we can see how style can vary in two thematically similar communities. If we want to see how the complexity of the discourse varies on these two communities, we can consider a readability score like the CLI. This measures the number of years of education needed to understand a piece of text. We can see that the 4chan community has a CLI score of 5.31, while the Reddit community has a CLI score of 7.44. This means that if you want to join the 4chan community, you just need to be a middle school freshman, while for Reddit, you need to be in high school. That's an extra 2 years of education. Another stylistic feature we can look at is the use of negations. It seems that the Reddit users are 4 times more likely to use negations than the 4chan users. One possible interpretation of this can be that the Reddit users are 4 times more likely to disagree with each other than the 4chan users, meaning that there is more cohesion within the 4chan community. The final question we ask is whether we can predict community membership based on style alone. More formally, given a pseudo-document, can we identify which community it belongs to? We have our 262 features for the style-based classification, and for content, we use a bag of words approach. Using content alone, we are able to get an average accuracy of above 90%. Okay, that is quite impressive. But what about style? Well, using style alone, we are able to get comparable results. That means style is just as good a predictor of community membership as content. Actually, there isn't any statistical difference between the two. This is not only surprising but exciting as well. This means now we have a new tool to analyze communities with. In addition to these results, in our actual paper, we also performed further experiments to see what effect would changing the pseudo-document time window would have, or what happens if we have a smaller data set. I won't get a chance to discuss those here, but I would highly recommend that you read our paper. Thank you.